Hey, it's that card girl, and today we're going to be taking a look at the One Piece Card Games Starter Deck 28. This is a yellow-green starter deck featuring Yamato as the leader. This leader Yamato originally came from OP06. You know what, Hans? This is our last One Piece starter deck of this bunch. Let's get fancy. Now that's what I'm talking about. So we have our deck sandwich, which I kind of prefer calling it over a brick, with the leader on top and the 50 card deck between it and our 10 Dawn cards, our lovely booster pack of OP11, and our play guide that didn't get a chance to be camera shy today. Now, let's get down to business. We could have unwrapped all of the decks we do off camera, but isn't there just something satisfying about watching a deck get unwrapped? Our deck starts off with our 4-life, 5,000 power, yellow and green land Wano type Yamato. Then we have 2 copies of the 6-cost, 7,000 power Kozuki Momonosuke, 2 copies of the 1-cost, 0-power Yamato with a 1k counter, 4 copies of the 3-cost, 3,000 power Ashura Doji with a 1k counter, 4 copies of the 2-cost, 1,000 power Izo with a 1k counter, 2 copies of the 4-cost, 5,000 power Kinemon with a 2k counter, 4 copies of the 5-cost, 5,000 power Port Gastiace with a 2k counter, 4 copies of the 4-cost, 5,000 power Inuarashi with a 1k counter, 4 copies of the 3-cost, 5,000 power Kawamatsu, 4 copies of the 4-cost, 6,000 power Kikunojo, 4 copies of the 5-cost, 6,000 power Denjiro, 4 copies of the 4-cost, 5,000 power Nekomamushi with a 1k counter, 4 copies of the 3-cost, 4,000 power Reizo with a 1k counter, 4 copies of the 5-cost, 4,000 power Yamato with a 2k counter, 4 copies of the 1-cost event Blaze Slice, and, of course, our 10 Dawn cards. Now that everything is all laid out, let's get to taking a closer look at each of these cards. Starting off with our leader, of course, who only has 4 life since it's a 2-color leader. Speaking of 2, this leader does have double attack, meaning it deals 2 damage. And once per turn during your main phase, you give one of your characters 2 of your rested Dawn so long as your opponent has 3 or less life cards. Then we have Inuarashi, who has the Slash attribute. If you've attached 2 Dawn cards to him, when you attack, you can trash 1 card from your hand to be able to KO a character of your opponent's that has a cost that is the same or less than the number of life cards your opponent has. So if your opponent has 4 life cards left, you can KO a 4-cost or less character of theirs. Nekomamushi has the Slash attribute as well, and if he has 2 Dawn cards attached, can attack active characters of your opponents, not just their rested. Denjiro also has the Slash attribute. If you've attached 2 Dawn cards to him, he cannot be KO'd by effects if your opponent has 3 or less life cards. And these first 3 cards all need 2 Dawn attached to them to get their effects. Lucky for us, our leader lets us move 2 rested Dawn cards to a character. And these first 3 character cards also have the same trigger if you pull them from your life cards. You can play the card if your opponent has 3 or less life cards. On to Kawamatsu, who also has the same trigger effect as the previous card. He also has the Slash attribute. Okay, I know, I don't normally mention what attribute a card has, but when we get into our upgrade cards, it'll all make sense. I promise. Back to Kawamatsu. When attacking, if you trash 2 cards out of your hand, you can add a 0 power character to your life cards face up on either the top or bottom. So if you have a card whose life draw trigger you want, this is a good card to get this to happen with. It also gets you another life card, which is a bonus in and of itself. Reizo is slash attribute and gets his effect when attacking. If you trash 1 card from your hand, you get to rest 1 of your opponent's dog cards. This can help prevent them from playing a counter event. And, as has been the norm so far, if you get this card from your life card, its trigger lets you play it so long as your opponent has 3 or less life cards. Kikunojo is another slash attribute card that has the same life draw trigger of your opponent having 3 or less life cards, letting you play this card. And if this card is KO'd, so long as your opponent has 3 or less life cards, you can move the top card of your deck to the top of your life cards. On to a few non-slash attribute cards. We have the character card Yamato, who has Rush and when played lets you look at all of your life cards and move 1 of them to the top of your deck. The rest of your life cards get put back in any order. Since there's no cost associated with this and no usage of the word may, you do have to do this when playing this card. But since there's cards that let you move cards from your deck to your life, I wouldn't worry too much about losing a life card doing this. The 1 green card included in this yellow-green deck is the special attribute Portgas the Ace. He lets you rest up to 1 5-cost or less character of your opponent's, so long as you have at least 2 rested characters on play. He also does not have the land of Wano type, which shows this deck isn't really too type focused. Now, our 1 event card in this starter deck is Blaze Slice. It can be used during your main phase or as a counter card during your opponent's turn. It gives your leader or a character card plus 1k power for the turn, and then if your opponent is down to 2 life cards or less, you get to rest 1 4-cost or less character of theirs. If you get this from your life cards, its trigger lets you rest a 4-cost or less character of your opponent's. And that was the last of the cards included in the starter deck that are reprints, which means it's time to move on to the 5 cards that are brand new to this starter deck, starting with Kinemon, who has the slash attribute. Now, this card's only effect is the trigger effect if you pull it from your life cards. It allows you to play this card if your opponent has 3 or less life cards and your leader has the land of Wano type, which our leader Yamato does. Ashura Doji has the slash attribute and on play since our leader is a land of Wano type, so long as your opponent has 3+ life cards, a change from the normal 3 or less this deck likes, you KO a base cost 5 or less character of your opponent's. Izo has the ranged attribute, and if you attach 2 Dawn cards, he becomes a blocker. And when you play him, our land of Wano type leader Yamato gains Banish for the turn. Banish makes it to where if you attack your opponent's leader with your leader Yamato in this case, which is really what you should be using it for since it has double attack, instead of being able to get whatever trigger the card from their life would have given them or putting the card into their hand, the cards go directly to the discard pile. Kind of a go directly to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200 situation, except a bit more game changing. Now we've got our 1-cost character Yamato. It may say this card has no power, but if you attach 2 Dawn cards to it, you're basically turning it into a 5k card. You get the 2k from the Dawn cards being attached themselves, and then attaching the Dawn cards gives you plus 3k. It's a bit wonky, but it makes it a 5k card with a cost of 1. Plus 2. Let's move on to the on-play effect before I get more confusing. On play, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal 1 2+ cost Land of Wano type card, add it to your hand, and return the other cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. A nice cheap searcher card that can be pretty powerful. Kozuki Momonosuke is a slash attribute card that grants your leader 1k power during your turn if you have 2 or less life cards. And once per turn during your main phase, you can return 2 Dawn cards that are attached to either your leader or characters to your cost area rested to give this card Rush and an additional 1k power. And those 2 Dawn cards do not have to come from the same place either. You can take 1 from your leader and 1 from a character, 1 each from 2 different characters, or take them both from the same character or your leader. However you want, so long as 2 cards get put back rested. And that is the last of the cards that have come included in the starter deck. I do want to take a quick second here to remind you that while Hans and I do a lot of research for these videos, we have not watched the anime. The art for the cards is gorgeous, the game itself is super fun. We just haven't started our 1,000+ episode journey yet, so please forgive me if I misgendered any of the characters in this deck. I do my best. Now, on to our upgrades. Since we only have the single green ace, let's go ahead and get started with the green event cards first. Because the side of justice will be whichever side wins, comes from OP05. This is a counter card with no Dawn cost, but does require you to trash a card from your hand. Then, one of your characters or your leader gains plus 3,000 power during that battle. If you pull it from your life cards, the trigger lets you rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Demonic Aura 9 Sword Style Asura Demon 9 Flash is from OP07, but is also included in the Jewelry Bonnie Starter Deck 24. This 2-cost event is played during your main phase and lets you give your leader or one character plus 3k power for the turn. Then you can rest one of your characters with a cost of 3 or more to be able to rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So you can buff up your power and then give yourself the opportunity to swing at a character that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise since you got to rest it. If you pull this card from your life, the trigger allows you to rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. The 3-cost Electrical Luna from OP08 is used during your main phase to make it to where all of your opponent's characters that have a cost of 7 or less don't become active during your opponent's next refresh phase. That's a pretty big effect for just costing 3 Dawn. Now, if one of your opponent's characters was not rested when you played this and then becomes rested due to another effect, that character of theirs will become active during their refresh phase. So make sure you play your cards in the right order. This event also has a trigger for pulling it from your life cards that lets you rest up to one of your opponent's characters. Radio Knife from OP10 is 4 cost and has a main phase effect that has you rest up to one 6 cost or less character of your opponent's and then KO one 5 cost or less rested character of your opponent's. Its life draw trigger lets you rest one 4 cost or less character of your opponent's. Gum Gum Giant Pistol is 3 cost and out of EVO2. It has the same trigger effect if you get it from your life cards as Radio Knife, and if you use it during your main phase, you can give 6k power to one of your Straw Hat Crew type characters, but this character won't become active during your next refresh phase. Now, I know our leader is Land of Wano type, but we'll get to where the Straw Hat Crew comes into this in a moment. Straw Sword has a cost of 2 and comes from Starter Deck 2. You can play it during your main phase to be able to rest one of your opponent's characters. This trigger lets you play one Supernovas type card that costs 2 or less out of your hand. Now, let's move on to some yellow event cards, like You're the One Who Should Disappear. This 0-cost event card from OP06 is a counter card that has you trash a card from your hand to give a character or your leader an additional 3k power for the battle. If you draw this from your life cards and it was the last of your life cards, you can put the top card of your deck into your life cards and then trash one card from your hand. So if you get a chance to reorder your life cards, you're going to want to put this one on the bottom. Kingdom Come from EVO1 is 6 cost and used during your main phase to allow you to KO up to one of your opponent's characters. Then you trash your life cards from the top down until you have one life card remaining. If you pull this from your life cards, you can use its trigger to KO a character of your opponent's that has a cost equal or less than the total of both of your life cards. So if you draw this card and now have 3 life cards and your opponent has 3, you can KO a 6 cost or less character of theirs. And this card is not counted in the life cards you're adding up. The 1-cost El Thor is from OP05 and is a counter card. When you play this card, one of your characters or your leader gains plus 2,000 power for the battle. If your opponent has 2 or less life cards, it gains an additional 2,000 power for a total of plus 4k for the battle. The life draw trigger for this card lets you KO an opponent's character that has a cost that is the same as or less than the number of life cards your opponent has. So if your opponent has 2 life, you can KO a 2-cost or less character of theirs. Damned Punk from OP10 has a cost of 4. It's used during your main phase to let you look at either your or your opponent's top life card and then put it back at either the top or the bottom of whoever's life cards it was. And then you get to KO a 5-cost or less character of your opponent's. Its trigger lets you draw 2 cards and then trash 1 card from your hand. Moving on from event cards, we have some yellow character upgrade options, starting with Shura from OP05. This is a 2-cost, 2000 power card with a 1k counter and the slash attribute. On play, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a Sky Island type card besides Shura. Don't worry, the other 2 cards on the screen are also Sky Island type cards. Add that card to your hand and put the other cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. If you pull this from your life cards, its trigger lets you play this card. The 5-cost, 5000 power, 2k counter strike attribute Satori from OPO5 just has a life draw trigger that has you trash 1 card from your hand to play it. Ohm from OPO5 is 4-cost, has a 1k counter and the slash attribute. He has 5000 power. Unless you have 2 or less life cards, then he's 6000 power. On play, you search the top 5 cards of your deck for a Holly card, put the other cards at the bottom of your deck in any order, and then play a Holly card. Holly is from OPO5 and has a cost of 3, 5000 power, a 1k counter, and the strike attribute with no additional effects. It's also a Sky Island type card. X-Drake from OP10 is 3-cost, 3000 power, has a 2k counter, and the slash attribute. During your main phase, you can rest this card, and if you have the same number of life cards or less life cards than your opponent, you rest a 4 or less cost character of your opponent's. It is a Supernova's type card, but costs more than 2, which was the condition for Straw Sword. The same goes for the 4-cost, 5000 power, 1k counter slash attribute Basil Hawkins from OP10, who on KO lets you trash your opponent's top life card. If you get this card from your life cards, its trigger lets you draw 2 cards and then trash a card from your hand. Portgas Diaz from Starter Deck 13 is 5-cost, 7000 power, and has the special attribute. If you have 2 or less life cards when you play this card, it gets Rush. Eustace Captain Kidd from OP10 is 8-cost, 9000 power, and has the special attribute as well. On play, you can rest him and trash the top card of your opponent's life cards. If your opponent has 2 or less life cards at the end of your turn, you draw a card and trash a card from your hand. Alright, now remember Gum Gum Giant Pistol that lets you give 6k power to a Straw Hat Crew type? You can pretty much turn this deck into a Straw Hat Crew type deck if you want. So, let's talk about some yellow Straw Hat Crew type characters you can upgrade this deck with. Starting with Nico Robin from OPO9. She is 6-cost, 6000 power, has a 1k counter, and the strike attribute. If your opponent has 3 or more life cards when you play her, you can trash the top of your opponent's life cards. Her life draw trigger lets you play a 3-cost or less yellow card from your hand. Nami out of OPO8 is 5-cost, 5000 power, has a 1k counter and the special attribute. On play, you can trash a card with a trigger from your hand to be able to KO a 5-cost or less character of your opponent's. Then you get to draw a card if you have 3 or less cards in your hand. This is also the effect the trigger gives you if you draw this card from your life cards. Onami from OPO6 is 2-cost, 3000 power, has a 1k counter and the special attribute. When you play her, your leader or a character gains Banish for the turn. If you pull her from your life cards, the trigger lets you KO a 5-cost or less character of your opponent's. Monkey D. Luffy from OP10 is 1-cost, has 2000 power, a 1k counter, and the strike attribute. Besides being Straw Hat Crew type, he's also Supernova's type, so you could use Straw Sword's trigger to play him. His on-play effect has you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a Supernova's card that isn't Monkey D. Luffy, add it to your hand, and, you guessed it, put the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. Frankie from OPO7 is 4-cost, 5000 power, has a 2k counter and the strike attribute. He has a trigger effect that lets you draw a card, and if you have 1 life or less, play him. Sanji from EVO2 is 5-cost, 6000 power, has a 1k counter and the strike attribute. He's a blocker, and if you have 2 or less life cards when you play him, you draw 2 cards and then trash a card. Moving on to some green Straw Hat Crew type cards, we have Nami from EVO2. This card is one of my favorites art-wise. She's 1-cost, has 2000 power, a 1k counter, and the Wisdom attribute. She's a searcher card that has you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a Straw Hat Crew type card that is not Nami, and not just this Nami, any Nami, put it in your hand, and put the rest of the cards at the bottom of your deck. Roronoa Azoro is from OPO6, has a cost of 9, 9000 power, and has the slash attribute. Once per turn when attacking with Zoro, you can rest one Dawn card and then set him back as active. Also, during your main phase, you can rest 2 Dawn cards and set him as active. So, you can attack with him 3 times a turn, so long as you have the unused Dawn to do it. Now, that's enough Straw Hat Crew characters. Let's move on to some green characters you can upgrade this deck with that aren't Straw Hat Crew type. Like Izo here, out of OP01 with 3 cost, 3000 power, a 2k counter, and the ranged attribute. When you play this card, you can rest a 4 cost or less character of your opponent's. Killer from OP01 is 2 cost, 2000 power, has a 1k counter, and the slash attribute. It's a blocker, and if there's a Dawn attached when it blocks, you draw a card if you have 3 or more characters. Eustace Captain Kidd is 8 cost, 8000 power, has the special attribute, and is from OP01. During your opponent's turn, if you have a Dawn attached and he is rested, your opponent can only attack characters you have in play named Eustace Captain Kidd. And once per turn during your main phase, you can rest this character to be able to play a 3 cost or less character from your hand. You can do this on the turn you play him, and even if you don't have a 3 cost or less character to play in your hand. It's a nice way to get him rested to take advantage of the effect you get during your opponent's turn on the turn you play him. Jewelry Bonnie from STO2 is 1 cost, 1k power, has a 1k counter, and the special attribute. During your main phase, you can attach 1 Dawn and rest this card to search your top 5 cards for a Supernovas type card and add it to your hand, and then place the rest of the cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. Dracul Mihawk from Starter Deck 12 is 3 cost, 4000 power, has a 2k counter, and the slash attribute. When you play him, if you have 2 or less characters, you play a 4 cost or less Muggy Kingdom type or slash attribute character besides Dracul Mihawk rested from your hand. Now it finally makes sense why I've been saying every card's attribute type, huh? And if you've noticed, there has been a lot of slash attribute type cards. Don Quixote Rocinante from OP05 has a cost of 2, 1k power, a 1k counter, and the special attribute. He's a blocker and also makes it to where during your opponent's turn, if one of your rested characters would be KO'd by an effect, you can trash this card instead. So, besides being a traditional blocker, it's an effect blocker as well. Cody Jones from OP06 has a cost of 7, 8000 power, and the strike attribute. Besides having rush, there's the on-play effect that lets you rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters or their Dawn cards. Then you add the top card from your life to your hand. The 6 cost, 7000 power slash attribute Basil Hawkins is out of OP07. He does not gain rush since our leader has the Land of Wano type and not the Supernovas type, but he does get his once per turn effect, making it to where if this card would be removed from the field by an effect of your opponent's, he stays and you instead get to rest one of your opponent's characters. Jewelry Bonnie from OP07 is 5 cost, 6000 power, has a 1k counter, and the special attribute. On play, she makes it to where one of your opponent's rested characters or one of their rested Dawn cards will not become active during their next refresh phase. Smoker from OP10 is 5 cost, 7000 power, and has the slash attribute. He's got Banish, and during your main phase, you set one of your Dawn cards as active, but then can't set any more as active using characters' effects for the rest of your turn. Tashigi from OP10 is 3 cost, has 4000 power, a 2k counter, and the special attribute. With this card, if an opponent's effect would remove a green character not named Tashigi, you can rest this card instead. And that's it for this deck and upgrade options. Thanks for sticking around for all of it. I know that was a lot. So let's just go ahead and get to opening our pack of OP11. As always, here's your reminder that we put out new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with shorts on Sundays. We focus mainly on the One Piece, Pokemon, and Lorcana TCGs. Make sure you're following us over on Instagram at thatcardgirl.tcg. There's a link for it in the description, as always. Another leader Katakuri card? We got so many leader cards in these starter deck packs. But hey, there's a Dawn, so Hansa's happy. And please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and tell your next starter deck about us. That Card Girl out!